Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, powered by FanDuel Sportsbook.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Ken. Welcome to the Fan Cave. This is the Steeler Monday, which means we're talking about Steelers from Sunday, and there's a lot to talk about. We welcome you in. Bob Pompeani, joined tonight by Chris Muller of 93.7 The Fan, and you at 412-575-2600. That's the number to call, and we'll get right into it. Chris, good evening to you, and your thoughts about yesterday's performance, because I thought it was pretty dominant in the first half, and then they seemed to take their pedal off the metal, thinking it was won before it actually was.
Well, I came away from the first game of the season thinking that maybe my 9-7 and sneak into the playoffs prediction was underselling this team, because I thought they looked very good, admittedly, against not a very good team in week one. And I thought maybe this is more like a 10-11 win team. I come away from that Denver game yesterday thinking that 9-7 and sneaking into the playoffs is probably exactly where they belong based on what they showed. I was not impressed at all with what happened in the second half. It started with obviously Roethlisberger throwing the interception when they're up 17-3. Benny Snell's fumble, a near catastrophe. That's 2-2 games for him. And it's, you know what it is for me, Bob? It's Jeff Driscoll was the guy working them over. This wasn't like Deshaun Watson maybe walking through that door like he will this coming week, or this isn't, one of the marquee quarterbacks in the league. This is a guy that barely qualifies as an NFL player. And the only real difference I noticed from like one of those games last year where we were all so frustrated that they couldn't close the deal is that they had a quarterback this time in Ben Roethlisberger who could make the requisite plays when they absolutely had to have him. But otherwise, this was a kind of an underwhelming game, and I don't really want to hear about how the defense had all those hits and pressures and sacks, because when it came time to shut this thing down, they got strafed by a bad quarterback. Down his best receiver, no less.
Yeah, and I think it was a combination of them playing better, because I think when you lose your starting quarterback, sometimes everybody on that team knows you got to dig deeper, but also the Steelers really thinking that this game was over before it was. They were real good in the first half, not so good in the second half. Complete opposite of what we saw last week against the Giants, where they came out flat and they got better as the game went along. All right, we bring up this weekly conversation about running backs. Right now, Benny Snell looks like a guy that has to make sure he understands holding onto the football is his number one issue. You saw James Conner run down the field, and one of the reasons why he didn't get into the end zone on a 59-yard run, I think, he's not Anthony McFarland, but what he is, however, is someone who's fumbled before. So he's grasping onto the football and making sure he holds on, because he's been through that. What does Benny Snell have to do to get back into good graces here, Chris?
I'm not really sure. 2 fumbles in 2 games is a very bad sign for him. But then again, if Mike Tomlin is adhering to what he did in 2018, he should play him pretty soon, like next week, because James Conner had some catastrophic fumbles in that season as well. Well, that season and last season against the Niners. And Tomlin went right back to him. I'll go back to this. I grew up, and I was a teenager during and we all remember these lean years, the Kent Graham-Cordell Stewart Derby at quarterback circa 2000. What was it? When you have 2 starting quarterbacks, you really have none. When you have 2 bell cow running backs, or theoretically you thought you did, you really have none. You know what was a telling stat that we talked about on the show today? The Steelers called 16 straight pass plays in the second half of this game when they were trying to sit on a lead. What does that tell you about the coaching staff's faith in the running game? If they are going 16 straight passes while they're trying to protect a second half lead.
Yeah, it tells you the opposite of what Baltimore is doing right now, because the Ravens won and beat the Texans, who start off with 2 losses against 2 of the best teams in the game. So they come here probably looking not like so much an 0-2 team, just a team that ran into 2 good teams, but the Ravens have run the ball down people's throats, and that's a big difference and advantage for the Ravens so far after 2 games. We're going to take a break, come back with Chris, and more for your calls at 412-575-2600. Plus, the NFL did something tonight to find 3 coaches. We'll tell you what that is and what did they do. We'll explain coming up next. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, 7 nights a week here on Pittsburgh's CW.